What is up, everyone? We have a very special guest for this part of the girls' room, the one and only Emma Kittle. How are you doing today?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm great. Life is good in Southern California.
You got to be like, we're pretty excited about this, okay? Because you're the first interview that we've done that is like outside of the baseball world and that's not really associated with Job Boy Media. So, like, big step for us. We're excited.
An honor.
Thank you, honey. I feel honored.
So obviously for those who don't know who you are, let's just start off with like some basics: name, age, hair color, where you grew up, things like that. So I'll let you take the floor and give your little synopsis.
Obviously. Okay. Well, my name's Emma Kittle. I am from Iowa City, Iowa. I grew up in the Midwest, so corn-fed family, big family. And then went to college at the University of Oklahoma. I played volleyball there. And then kind of got a little confused at what I wanted to do. I had like all these plans. I was going to go be Craig Bradshaw in New York, and then everything fell through. So either way, I ended up studying yoga and going back to, kind of jumping into a teacher training. I was planning on going to law school, and I was like getting all crazy anxious and stuff. So I went to do a yoga teacher training instead, because I was realizing that yoga was the only thing that was actually helping me not be so stressed out and paranoid all the time. And so I just fell in love, and I realized that I really wanted to work with athletes. Thankfully, my little brother has had quite a shining football career, so it's given me access to some pretty amazing clients. So football has really been our main niche for a long time, but since meeting my new fiance as of like 4 days, I'm getting into the baseball world. But I joke with Pax all the time that I like literally know nothing about baseball. So I'm eager to learn. But yeah, now I do holistic health coaching. I run a podcast, and I help manage these different athletes in my life.
So basically you went from like one of the most stressful career paths of all time as a lawyer to like the most like fulfilling and chill and like go with the flow career paths. Like
Exactly.
how has like that transition been? Because I feel like just as a person, you kind of have to be a go type of human being. Like, is it hard to transition into that, or is there some aspects of like yoga and wellness and health and all that that are still in that go mentality?
I think the yoga principles kind of anchor everything that I do now. I think for me, like my idea for law school was my dad did it, and he just always talked about how it taught him how to think, taught him how to write. And after all my plans kind of, just exploding in front of my face, and moving back home, I was just like, I need something to do. And so law school was just like this next step. But it was really interesting because I mean, in hindsight, we can always see how wonderful the lessons that we were learning are. But, I started seeing how it was like really the first time that I started like making the connection between emotional and mental stress and the physical stress that it was having on my body. And then, as I started to release that physically through yoga, how that mental and emotional tension was like really going away. And so, I think it was kind of a gift and a curse, a little double-edged sword. But I think now just going through that, and I mean, stress doesn't really go away. It's just kind of how we want to look at life. And so I just try to bring those same practices into like, what am I supposed to learn right now? Or like how, what are the lessons that I'm supposed to see?
So I kind of want to touch on, obviously we work for a company that covers a lot of baseball. And
a lot of baseball.
And you just stated that you don't know much about baseball, but you haven't been like around the baseball world for too long. You guys met like what, a year ago, something like that?
Yes. Yeah. Pretty recent. But I remember I had this like high school stint where I was like hanging out with my older cousin a lot, and she was really into the Cardinals. And so I remember watching a lot of baseball with her, but I also it just didn't do it for me. I didn't make the connection. I wasn't like, wow, I didn't get it. You know what I mean? I didn't realize how much actually goes into it. And I think honestly, that was kind of the same thing with me in football. It was like, I think I was also a little burnt out on so many sports, just like living in a gym all the time. And then even with George's football, once I started once you got to the NFL and I could really see the behind the scenes stuff, and like class wasn't there and we could kind of see the layers. And then obviously COVID hit, where it's like we were all in the same house doing everything together. I don't think it was really until then that I started seeing how much effort goes into it. And I feel like that's a dumb thing to say, but honestly, I didn't really have like a serious appreciation for it. And so, and it's so cool now to know the people, or to even have worked with some of the people who George plays against, and like to see your clients on the field and like going at it. So I'm hoping that I have that similar affiliation with baseball, that like, I just knowing people now, and Cody will be like, this is like, I haven't met him, but like Josh Cater with the Padres.
Yeah.
That was like my one person in the playoff run that I knew. And so I was like so obsessed with the Padres for the rest of the run, but that was it.
It's interesting because you like, now that you said you like learned more of the behind the scenes, and now you work in that space to some extent for some of these athletes. So that's interesting. You went from kind of like not knowing a lot to now working on the back end of like what makes them successful in their careers.
Yeah, it's really interesting also just to see like all the mental cues. And, you know, obviously, I mean, once you get to this high of a level, everybody's good. Like everybody can run really hard. Everybody can hit, you know, whether it's football or baseball. Actually, I probably shouldn't say that. Not everybody can hit. That's what Cody's been informing me, that hitting is really, really hard. But in football, at least, you know, like everybody is so athletic, and it comes to some point where it's really the mental game and how you can stay in it and how you can prepare. And so, yeah. And I mean, for me, yoga is so mental, and the things it gives you access to in yourself. And so it's really fascinating to kind of see all the different pieces come together.
Yeah. So you not only got thrown into the baseball world, but you got thrown into the international baseball world, which I don't think a lot of people really touch on, just how different of like a way of life it is just for a professional athlete in general overseas, whatever sport it is. So kind of walk us through, one, just the culture shocks, and two, what you kind of picked up on that's different maybe from a typical American professional sport game.
Well, I think obviously the biggest thing is the language. I'm pretty good with language. I love studying language. I pick it up pretty easily, but having a different alphabet is like a whole different ballgame. And I didn't really appreciate that until I got over there. I mean, Cody had told me some, but it's kind of like, you know, you hear there's something happening and then you see it and it's like a whole different experience. So, getting over there and just like I mean, thank goodness for phones. I need to stop dropping mine in the ocean, but, thankfully, you know, everybody's super kind in Japan, which I think we got really lucky for being over there. Like it's a super clean, it's a super safe community. I mean, whole country, honestly, I felt super safe. It also helps that I'm like 6 foot and Cody's 6'6". So I tower over everybody. So it's like, I feel really safe all the time. But I've been to a couple baseball games, like MLB games here. Like we're from Iowa. So Wrigley Field was always where we'd go, and watch the Cubs. And just the noise, I never remember going to those games and feeling like it was like the noise was like really overwhelming. Like we're at football games, you know, some like going to Seattle or even like Levi Stadium now, it's just crazy how loud it gets. But in Japan, there's no limit, or there's no restrictions on like anything that you can bring in. So people bring in like noisemakers, they bring in giant flags, they bring in like air horns. Like it's just so loud all the time. And they're also like very in the phase of like what the fox says. And like, it's very anime over there, obviously, but it's just very like techno-y. And so it's fun, but the games are like it felt like an NFL game to me, where it feels like a party.
Interesting. That's really interesting, because, season is typically like the same length, right? Or a little bit longer. You guys will be over there like end of January to October, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing about international baseball. It's just I've heard it's insane, but I feel like until you experience it, you really just don't even get it. Actually,
I think this is like fascinating how we have the 7th inning stretch. They have the 5th inning smoke break. And so all of the states, swear to God, guys. So they, Cody threw no hitter last year. And so they let me in with a press pass, because I was technically hired. I couldn't just go over there because of COVID. So the team had to hire me as his mental health and yoga consultant, his wellness consultant, or I can't remember exactly how he framed it, but he had to like hire me, and then I had to get a work visa, and then the team had to sponsor me to go over there. And so through that, I was able to like get some other, we just kind of like took advantage of the whole situation, or like, you know, pushed it as far as we could. But so one of the games, I'm sitting down under the stadium with him, and there's this room, like, I mean, like right where like that room is behind me. And there's like all this smoke coming out. And I'm like, Cody, what is that? And he's like, oh, that's the smoke break room. And I was like, what do you mean? I mean, it's like 20 minutes before the guys are going out, and like the umps are going in there. Also, I've realized that I always call them refs because I'm so used to football. And so like I'll always text Cody mid-game. I'll be like, the refs suck. I'm like, oh, dang it. So that's like a big flip too. But yeah, they're like, they go down there and they smoke before, they smoke during the 5th inning, and then the fans do also. And so there's like smoke rooms in the stadium where people are either like ripping heaters or like smoking a cigar. And it's, yeah, they just like come out and it's just part of it. It's just like drinking a beer.
That's crazy.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah. I don't even know 5 people that smoke cigarettes anymore. Like it's so, what a change.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's in like for the fans, it's in like a glass room. So if you ever seen like bars where you can smoke like in the bar or whatever, which actually in Oklahoma, there were bars all over like that in college. And so you can like go into this room, but it's like, it's just this hazy glass because everybody's smoking inside. But that's exactly what it looks like in the stadium.
That's insane.
I know.
That's insane. I'm like imagining that like someone just walking out of just like a cloud of smoke. All right, time's for my baseball.
Or like going and running bases after that. But the other interesting, I mean, just the food's super different. Obviously, like you can get a bento box and sushi, and I usually get like udon noodles, and I sit there with chopsticks.
That's so crazy. We're just eating a hot dog.
Yeah, right.
A full sushi dinner.
No, and the other thing is the stadiums are so clean. So if you like, nobody leaves any trash. And so after the games, everyone's like scouring the area. Like the stadium's spotless. It's beautiful.
Huh.
All of them are. Yeah.
That's hard to imagine.
Yeah. I know, right?
Yeah.
Very
like
hard.
in college, we would do something called stadium cleanup, right? Did you guys ever have to do that for sports? Where in the morning, so like there'd be a college football game, and then the next morning, all of the high school sports teams, it was like, I don't know how we got hooked into this, but either way, we would go and we'd like clean up the whole stadium in Iowa City. So for the Iowa Hawkeyes, and it was just disgusting. Like the amount of beer and trash and food and everything that gets left behind. I mean, even just like clothes and stuff that's left. And it's just night and day here.
I feel like overseas kind of has like a different misconception. Like people think it's like dirtier, like there's more pollution, so that means there's more trash and people don't take care of things as much. So it's interesting to hear that it's like actually polar opposite, because stadiums here are disgusting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I can't speak for all international, but at least in Japan, all of the stadiums, like every single one, even the older ones, were spotless.
Interesting. So now that you've added baseball to your life, well, forever, you're doing sports year round. So you have baseball.
Oh, it's a schedule.
The second it's done, like football, actually, they overlap, do they not?
They overlap. Yeah.
How do you do that? How are you, like, is this, I'm sure
I don't know,
this
dude.
football season's been like a weird balance.
It's been super weird. Yeah, it's been weird. I mean, thankfully, Cody, like off season's in California. So the flights and we've had so many, actually the front half of the football season for the Niners was front loaded for a lot of away games. And so that was a really big blessing because I like missed most of those, but now on the back end, like almost all of our games have been home, which has been amazing. Or, at least either like LA or Seattle, or at least on a West Coast game. And so, or even just Las Vegas, but those are all really easy to get to. And so having this as a home base, being in Costa Mesa, has just been like awesome. So we just fly up to the games, but schedule wise, it's kind of trash because I wish that there was like a pocket where all of us could have like a little bit of downtime. But I mean, it's just crazy to think that like until one of them is finished playing, which according to both of them is like not going to be for a while, like we'll never have any down. Like actually Christmas Day this year, George had off, and that was like the one day, but Cody and I had to travel to like go be with his family. So it was like, we just don't have any days off together.
That's probably going to make for an interesting wedding planning season for you.
There's one weekend that's available, and that would be George's bye week. And we won't know that for like until the football season comes out. So it's kind of like, if it works, great. If it doesn't, then we'll find another plan. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. I think both of us are like relaxed about it enough to where it's not going to be this massive, like super formal situation where, I mean, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say that. We haven't really planned anything, but either way, there's one weekend that's the good option.
That's gonna, yeah. I was curious about that. I was asking Cody, I mean, because football season and baseball season are polar opposite, and both, you know, in season and off season are so important to both of them. And so figuring out a way to like balance it and also take care of yourself and your own mental sanity and all of that, I'm sure is going to be a new juggling experience, but it'll be good. It'll be great, right? It'll be fun.
Mm-hmm. It'll be great. It'll be great. We're just full steam ahead.
A lot of flights.
Yeah. I did want to ask, your brother's really good at football.
He's really good at football. Yeah.
And he's one of the more notable players in the NFL right now in the past few years, truthfully. Has it been weird? Has it been interesting? Has it been fun? Because there is a sense of, I'm sure, pride because that's your brother. And then there is a sense of, oh, you're George Kittle's sister.
Yes. Truthfully, there's been some, I mean, overall, like, it's sick. It's amazing. It's so much fun. And like, I'm so proud of him. I'm so grateful. It's definitely, I feel like over the last couple of years, I've found something that's like worked really well for me, but like finding that and like fine tweaking it to make sure that I don't get lost in it in a way, you know? And I think our family is different in the sense that we have like, at least like our core four, right? So me, my mom, my dad, and my brother, we've just always done everything together. And so like my dad was just such a dreamer growing up. So we would move all over the place. We'd like start over and like just all these different ideas. And we were never afraid to start over, but we would always go together. And so when George got drafted, it was like, yeah, we're going to every game. Like we're going to go and be a part of it. And I think in the beginning, it was hard for me to like, well, mostly because I was working like brick and mortar jobs where I had to be somewhere, you know? And so figuring out a transition of how do I work virtually and like do something that actually still feels sustaining. Cause I think as much as we do virtual stuff, like it's not the same as when you're connected like face to face, especially for like yoga and, you know, the wellness and aspect of it. So yeah, it took a little tweaking, but I think I finally found my system, which I'm very, very grateful for.
Taylor, what was that video that you found earlier that you sent in the group message?
It was a video of like a bunch of players in the last game congratulating JJ Watt on his career. And there was an interaction between JJ and George where they bring up your grandma and how it was her 100th birthday. Can you tell us that whole story? Because we only get a clip. It was like, I was on NFL's Instagram, but I want to hear that she was 100 and went to her first game. It sounded so cute.
Well, so now knowing the backstory that it was kind of around Cody proposing to me, there's all these different layers that like I'm still trying to figure out. But either way, the overarching story is that Grandma Lucky turned 100 on January 6th. She has 10 daughters. Yeah, so we have a huge family. And so so she has never come to an NFL game. And my mom was there visiting, like helping her. They were going to like set up, they had a big party at her house. But honestly, since COVID, my grandma like hasn't really left the house besides to go to church, and she still drives. She's 100 and she still drives. But so she hasn't really done anything just because they've been like so on lockdown trying to take care of her. And so a lot of them, but some of my mom's sisters, one actually like moved in to like make sure that everything was okay and like take care. And, but yeah, she hasn't really done anything. And so Claire and George were like, you know, this is your 100th birthday. Would you want to come out to a game? And so George, helped get her out here. George and Claire did. And so they flew out. And so it was my mom, and then 3 of her sisters and my grandmother. And so they got out here and, yeah, it was so cool. We hosted her. The Niners team, like just the staff is so outstanding. Like we told them early on more so, I mean, we wanted to get her down on the field to see George and like to have that experience, but it was also like kind of a security measure. Like, how can we like bring her in? Can we like drive up all the way to the stadium? Can we get a wheelchair? Like, how do we take care of all this stuff? But then they totally planned it to like, at the end of halftime, everybody stood up and sang happy birthday to her. And they like had like on those like those screens around the stadium, it said happy 100th Lucky. And it was like so overwhelming. They brought a cake in, there was champagne everywhere. Like grandma doesn't drink, but either way, it was just like, it was such a huge party the entire weekend. So it was outstanding. And then, yeah, JJ asked, and then all of a sudden, like we're looking down and Brock Purdy and George are blowing kisses to grandma. And we're like, what is good? It was so sweet.
That is precious.
And then before the game, like a bunch of guys came over and hugged her. And it's like, they're so amped before a game. And like George does this too. Like he'll come and hug us, but he like hugs you like, and they're like in pads and they're huge. And so a couple of them came over and we were like, whoa, 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 like slow down guys, like slow down.
Don't tackle grandma.
Yeah. Don't tackle grandma, but
That's
she's
so
a little
precious.
fragile.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it was amazing.
Huh. And you got proposed to.
Yes, which I really thought that everything that was going on was like just for my grandma. So it was this perfect cover. They got me. I know.
love it. What
That was a good
weekend
plan.
for you.
It was fun. I love surprises. So this was a really good one.
I love it. So you and I have talked before just about women in sports, and obviously, you've touched on a few other content creator things, and obviously you have your hand just in the professional sports world in general, but just being a woman in sports, what do you think one of the biggest hurdles that you've had to face has been in this field? I'm always curious about this.
Myself, honestly, I think there are so many opportunities, and like, while I think it's kind of just the vision that you have and like what you want to accomplish and where you want to go. But I think for me, my biggest hurdle was always telling myself that like I needed to like have some separation, or that I couldn't, like, I never wanted to just be George's sister, like jumping onto everything. Like I really wanted to make sure that I was standing on my own. And I think because of that, I pushed myself into this kind of like space where like, I, how do I say this? I wasn't just like celebrating the life that I was living. And it was more like, oh, like I'm doing this, but like, it's separate. You know what I mean? It's separate, and it's not, it's not at all. Like, this is my family. Like, sorry, there's an alarm going off outside. Cody's going to check it out. But I think for me, it was more just like getting out of my own head and just being in the moment. And I think honestly, that's like what yoga and breath work has helped me so much to do, is just to not overthink stuff. And I think lately it's just been trusting my vision. I know this is like so cliche, but I think that's like the blessing of Instagram and like just quotes all the time. But I love right now, one of my favorite quotes that I keep saying is there's no traffic in your own lane. Like stay in your own lane. There's no traffic. And it's just, I always try to remind myself that, because nobody's living the exact life that I'm living. Nobody has the exact vision that I have. Like nobody is going to bring the same stories or the same message or the same healing that I do to the table. And so, or even to the world in that sense. And so it's just, not comparing myself, which has always been like a really hard thing not to do. And so, but yeah, it's just appreciating kind of my vision and trusting that I have it for a reason.
Yeah, I think that's an issue. I think that's a hard thing for, both women and men in any field, but especially women. I think in the sports world, you're kind of not told, but kind of told that you're all going against one another.
For sure.
And you're all like striving for the same goal, which is just like not true at all. Like truthfully, I think some of the best women I've ever met in this like world have worked in the sports industry. Truthfully, they're the most badass, like inspirational, like doing their own thing on their own path, like vibe of a human being. And I agree. I think getting in your own way is always going to be all of our biggest hurdles, truthfully.
For sure. I think it's
that quote.
I know, isn't it good? I think with that also though, it's nobody's, I think I always had this like very clear vision of like, okay, if I'm going to be like a journalist, right? So I went to, my degree is in journalism. And so whether it was like, I wanted to be Carrie Bradshaw, but I wanted to write for magazines and like cover all this stuff. And I was so into it. But I think when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is my one career path. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And I think with yoga, I even like kind of that bled in where I was like, okay, I'm a yoga teacher. And like, that's what I do. Like, that is my identity. That is who I am. And that's not the case, right? Like, I also do 100 other things now. And it's, it's definitely a juggling act, but I think it's I think that's how people are today, right? Like we do so many different things besides just hosting a podcast, or like working for John Boy Media. It's like, there's so many different aspects of it. And I think allowing ourselves to be really curious and passionate about the things that we love, it just fuels us on such a different level. So I think the other one more thing on that is like, you don't have to do it in a man's way. I think that's what like used to really hang me up too, was like the only way forward was the way that all these men had done it. And I was like, I'm not a man, and I have so much more awareness and empathy and sensation around certain things where like, I'm going to bring things that a man doesn't. And I think that's the perfect like dichotomy and balance of, the yin and the yang of everything. So I think it's, while like we're around so many alpha males, like all the time, right? So many like big dogs who are just like, whether they are or not, who just like think they're all that, that it's really important to remember that like those things can't exist without the sensitive or the softer side of things.
No, definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Well, on a lighter note, I'm curious, what are you going to learn about baseball this year, Emma? Do you have a goal list? Like, are you going to become like an expert? Are we going to talk to you at the end of baseball season? You're going to know like the ins and outs of the sport?
Yeah, totally. Actually, my goal is to learn some more Japanese.
Ooh.
I definitely want to get better at Japanese. So Cody and I have been practicing. He's actually pretty good with all the numbers. So like whenever we're counting anything, he always counts in Japanese. I really want to understand pitching more just because that's what he does, and like the pitches and like what they actually do. And yeah, I sound so green saying that. But honestly, whenever he's like, yeah, I got to go throw a bullpen. I'm like, okay, what are you doing? And I'll like have him like show me on my hand, you know what I mean? So I can like feel it. And he's like, you throw it like this because it goes like this. I don't know. I find it because like I am watching the other players, but like sort of, you know what I mean? Sort of like I'm really trying to like learn what Cody's doing. And so understanding like, well, why did you throw it that way? And I think like for me, that was like the hook of understanding, like hearing that back end stuff from George, that really got me so curious about the sport and like why the plays were lined up this way, or like why did the offensive coordinator call that, or like how did that scheme work together? And I think seeing how that kind of storyline plays out through baseball is really fascinating, but I don't speak the baseball language yet. So I'm trying to learn it.
That's totally fine. It's if you don't have just like an undenying passion for the sport, it's a hard sport to like jump onto unless you have like a personal reason to do so. Like it's hard.
I'm learning
and
that.
It's hard watching a pitcher too, because they could be great or they could not be great. So
we're just like, and I never get it because all of a sudden like other people are hitting and I'm like, are they just really good, or like is something else off, or like were the refs bad? No, I'm just kidding. But like there's so many different factors that I'm seeing all the layers coming together. So
yeah. I think with football too, like with football, like you were saying, like the play calling and all of that, it revolves around like at least a part of the team, like a group of the team. Where with baseball, there's so many small nuances that are just for each individual, like his pitches and the way that someone gets in their batting. Everything is so individual in baseball, where with football, it's like more of a broader like sense of like differences, like the play calling and this and that make things work. There's so many little nuances in baseball to like learn about, and especially with the pitcher. So yeah, take your time.
Yeah, take your time. You got plenty of time. Like you'll learn I'm still learning things, like new things about the sport of baseball, and I've been around it almost my entire life. So you never stop.
What's helping is I also realized how like many baseball movies I haven't watched. And so we've been like working through the classics. Cody has like a whole list. And so like once a week we watch a baseball movie, and I think it's helping. I haven't gone to a baseball game since, but yeah, now he's like throwing bullpens again. So now I love to go and watch him throw. And even just, for me, it's so much about like the physical movement and the physical body. And so watching him do all of his mobility work to like get that range of motion and like, does his hip close first, or his shoulder, or his wrist, or like, what's the action there? That's the stuff that like, I actually speak that language, so I'm kind of latching onto that in that sense, and just seeing the physical pieces of it.
Yeah. And just like the mentality of like a baseball player, I'm sure is a little bit different than the mentality of a basketball player or a football player or whatever other sport you want to throw in there, because baseball, these athletes are literally playing a game a failure. Like if you
Mhm.
fail 7 out of 10 times, you're like incredible. Like,
Yeah.
and that was so hard for me to wrap my head around of like, so we're like celebrating a fail. I don't get it. I don't understand this. Like,
Yeah, no, totally. And we actually, now, I mean, my family, like we go back and forth on, is baseball harder than football? And it's quite the argument in the family right now, but I just, the length of the season is insane. Like I can't imagine having kids and going through this where he's like gone all the time. Like
it
bananas.
it's wild. Like people us three have talked about this a lot, and specifically on, funny enough, Josh Hader and his wife Maria, who's a friend of the company's. And like people forget the human aspects on top
For
of
sure.
the mental aspects. So like when Hader and Maria had their baby, like Hader went through a really big slump and he like wasn't pitching good, and he was like he went from like one of the best to like one of the worst during that stretches. And everyone's like, well, oh, he's such a fluke. Like he's not as good of a player as we thought. Like he's awful, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, hey, maybe remember the fact that he has a newborn first kid, doesn't want to leave. And like that alone gives anyone a reason to like be a little tired at their job. They're just
for sure.
happen to be a professional athlete in front of millions of people.
Yeah, you're just performing and like doing your job in front of the entire world.
Right.
And everything's recorded. And like, if you say anything wrong, you're going to be blasted. Yeah. The media is psycho. Like it's crazy. And just like, even like fantasy football fans are the amount of messages that I get. Like, is your brother playing? Do you know if like Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play? Like, when's Debo going to be back? Is like, oh my God, my like so many, like if anybody ever listens to this and like sends me a DM and I don't answer, it's because I just literally don't go through them because I get so, or like, I just get so mad and like annoyed sometimes. So I just like don't go through my messages.
You're getting DMs about fantasy football?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When George first got into the league, it was like so many people. Like, you know, those like just like random people that you know in college and like, what's up, Em? Like, great to see you. Like, George is playing so well. By the way, like, any insight in the Niners? I'm like, for real?
Go away.
Yeah. Like, wait, seriously? Like, I get them on a regular basis.
You get more fantasy football DMs or more, can you get me free ticket DMs?
Honestly, now through Hidden Pearls, we get a decent amount of those. I don't know, not too many free tickets. It's more the it's more the like, I need to meet your brother, or like, or I get a lot of, can George send me, hey, it's my birthday. I'd really appreciate it if your brother sent me a message. Like I get probably 5 of those a week. I'm not kidding. Like, hey, it's my birthday. What would really make it the best is if your brother sent me like a birthday message. I was like, oh, okay, thanks, Frank. I know. Yeah. I'm like, I know I used to respond and be like, okay, message him, but no, I just don't respond.
Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. What, I mean, I'm sure George's wife's name is Claire, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm sure Claire gets just as many, if not more.
Oh yeah. Hers is crazy.
Up, just blown up.
Yeah.
I've never been the type of person that I'm like, you know what? I'm going to DM this person that I don't know and ask for something that's just slightly outlandish, but it feels right. I'm going to add an emoji. It'll be right. It feels right.
Yeah, it'll be right. And like, I don't mean to knock the fans, because like shit, without the fans, like we're not anything. Like George, you know, this game isn't anything. And like, we don't get to have this lifestyle, but it's like, I just always laugh at the more just the audacity that I think people like fans actually feel like they own a piece of the athletes out there, you know. And going back to what you're saying about the haters, it's like, it's such a human component. Like the mental and emotional struggle that people go through on a weekly basis is insane. And it's like, you're like, nobody's going to be able to understand that pressure. And it's not something that you can really come out and talk about, you know, like people can talk about it afterwards, but it's not something that you really like, man, I'm having a really down week. Like I'm super sad. Like my wife and I are in it. Like, you can't say that. And so people never know. And they just expect you to be like on top of the world all the time, which is like, I mean, just the parallel with it, with all the mental health stuff that's now coming out is like, it's crazy.
It is insane. It's like the second that you reach a certain level of success as a professional athlete, you lose human aspects. Like it always drives me insane during like trade season for whatever
Yes.
sport.
Oh my God.
Because it's literally just like, oh, they're not a human being. They don't have a family. They don't have to like pack up their home and like move across the country. They're just a pawn. And I get it. It's a part of a business, right? But like fans are just ruthless and they're like, oh, well, they make millions of dollars, so it doesn't matter. No, it like still matters. They're like,
It
they
matters.
still have feelings.
I know. Like just like to anyone who has ever moved once and how brutal it is, like just every season, right? Like some people do it like 3 times a year. It's insane. And and you like get better at it, but it doesn't make it any less energetically exhausting.
No, Taylor's moving right now and she could probably attest to how awful it is.
I'm losing sleep over my house being in boxes. So I can't
it's crazy.
imagine having kids and it's the middle of, you're working and you have your kids are in school and you're trying to move your husband across. No, nope. That's crazy. And you're doing it internationally. So more power to you.
Yeah. And like, I'm grateful that this is happening at a time when we don't have kids to where I can like go and like my biggest concern is my dog, which is why I'm not going for the whole time. I've tried all the weirdest things to like get him into Japan, but like he's just straight up too big. So he's like, I mean, you can pretty much have like a baby, like cupcake dog that you can take to Japan, but Dane's not that at all. He's like 80 pounds. So yeah, I'm going to go for 2 months and then come back and just like get all my Dane time in and then go for another 2 weeks or 2 months. So, but yeah.
Damn,
I know.
How do you pack? I'm an awful packer. How do you just like, how do you pack?
Well, truthfully, I'm going to try and not take too much stuff because the fashion in Japan is so sick. Like, especially in Hokkaido and Sapporo where we live, like it is so cool. And it's streetwear fashion in the sense of it's very like boxy modern. But like right before we left, or more when I was there and Cody would like actually come out and we'd like walk around and go shopping. So most of the players live by giant train stations, right? So we don't have cars. I mean, some people have car. We might get one this year, but they drive on the opposite side of the road too, which is like, whoa, terrifying. But so we live next to like a giant train station that has like the biggest mall ever. And like the tech stuff there is super crazy. So the fashion's super awesome. But we started like going through and like kind of finding gifts to take home to our family. But like there's like all these Carhartt what is it called? I can't remember, but it's pretty much like their fashion, like pop up in a way. And it's so cool. So I more want to like actually invest in some cool pieces over there and then not bring all of the stuff that I wear all the time and like push myself a little fashion wise.
Okay. You say that you're going to overpack. 1000% going to overpack.
This is true. I know. It's true.
So
it's true.
Last question I have, and then if Sam and Taylor have anything, what's next for you? What do we have to look forward to seeing you do in 2023?
2023, I have a couple like massive projects that we're coming out with. So first is the podcast that my dad, George, and I do is called Hidden Pearls Podcast. And that's kind of reached a peak with like taking on, well, the podcast in itself, but we just have so many mindfulness practices and things that we teach. And so we really want to organize a platform around all of that. And so we're about to launch our new website, except it's like literally almost done. And then, how you like find inspiration, you're like, oh shit, man, I really want to change it. So I'm trying to like give it a week and like, see if I actually want to change the whole thing. Either way, just design wise, but so the new website's going to come out. And with that, we're going to have a membership platform where all of my yoga classes are going to be hosted. And then all the mindfulness stuff. We do a ton of work with veterans. And so, we offer a lot of free classes with them. So kind of coming out with that. I think we're going to be launching an app this year just to kind of consolidate, but also make it a little bit more user friendly. And then this one actually like terrifies me to say, but I feel like I have to say it. I'm writing a book and it's like, it's there. I have like a couple pieces I'm like going through and like editing and rewriting all this stuff, but yeah. And then I took this like self-publishing course, or I'm almost done with it. And so I'm going to figure out how to self-publish it and then get it out there. So my mom's a photographer, thankfully. So we're doing all the photos in February. So like yesterday, Cody and I bought this like huge light setup that I have to learn how to use. And so it's very much like a home project, but I love learning how to do all this stuff and just like having all the resources like that. So yeah, so my mom will be my book photographer, and then I got to figure out how to publish this thing. And then, so my goal is to have it like at least like done, like all that, like with the art and everything done by the end of the year. So
dude, how are you going to casually be like, oh yeah, and I'm also like writing a book? Like, what? That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been like a dream for a long time. And I just like sat on it. And like for a while, Cody was like the only one that I was talking to it about. And I was like, he's like, you're like almost done with it. I was like, I know, but it's like, it's so crazy. So yeah, she's coming.
Exciting. That's super exciting.
I know. No human babies, but lots of work babies.
Hey, baby steps, slow.
Baby steps.
Slow. Let's get to the wedding first.
I know, right? I know. It's funny. I was talking to one of my mentors today, and she was, so we posted that photo. We posted a photo and both of us have our hands up, but it's Cody's right hand, but he does have a ring on. And so I've gotten so many messages being like, you guys got married. And I'm like, that was confusing. I just like the photo, but yeah. So yeah, got to do that. Got to launch a bunch of stuff. So I heard you guys might be coming to Japan though for some projects.
Yeah, there is some, I think, talks with that. I need to actually follow up with sales. One of our guys, Joe's McFly, who is quite possibly one of the more interesting and entertaining human beings on the face.
Wait, his name's Joe's McFly.
Joe's McFly. Like,
that's a name.
Dead
That's
ass.
a name.
And he lives up to the name, let me tell you. But yeah, if not for work, I'm definitely still looking into coming out there and doing some stuff too. But it's Japan. I feel like I need to go to Japan. I'm part Japanese.
You are?
Yeah. Yeah. My mom is half. Yeah. A little bit more than half. She was adopted, and my dad's blonde hair, blue eyes. So that's how we got me.
Wow. Arigato gozaimasu.
It doesn't click.
She got
so that was thank you.
It sounded very natural for you. So
yeah, it did. Yeah, me
I know. Arigato gozaimasu, doidashimashite, and simase. So those are kind of my pleasantries. Cody's a lot better, but we're getting there.
Hey, baby steps. Always take baby steps.
Yeah, Pax, you got to come do a little cultural heritage moment.
I do. I need to. Because, yeah, this might be, if not now, when, right?
It's a lot harder when you don't have somebody here. But do you know what part of Japan your family's from?
I don't. I could check my 23andMe and I could figure it out. But my mom has actually never met her birth parents. It was her mom that was Japanese. And sad story. I think it was like a one night stand. I don't even think her birth dad ever knew she existed. But her birth mom wrote her like a handwritten note. And so we knew we were Japanese, and then we did the 23andMe and it verified it. So I need to look into like what region, but I want to say Western, but I'm not completely sure. Need to look.
Fascinating.
But yeah, the more you know.
Wow. That would be quite the trip. So either way, if any or all of you come out, that would be so great. And you can hold my hand through the baseball games. Also, Cody's team is the Foxes. So we wear little fox ears, and then they always do what the fox says, and the entire stadium knows the dance. Like everybody does it. I don't either, but I have to be like really sneaky because I always love to take videos of people, because it's like, I've just never seen an entire stadium do that dance, so.
All together.
Yeah. In costume.
Well, not actually, a lot of people do wear costumes, but yeah, it was funny this year for Halloween. Cody and I didn't have Halloween costumes, and we were like, not really going to, we were going to do some stuff, and then family stuff came up and it just got like complicated, but our neighbors had a party. And so we're like, Cody's like, let's just go normal. I was like, no. But so the only thing that we had were his fox ears from his baseball season. So that's what we wore.
I love it. I love it. Sam and Taylor, you got any other questions?
I don't think so. We're big into reading, so we will read your book when it comes out, and then we can discuss it on the show. Really excited for that. But no, thank you for sharing all of that with us. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Happy birthday to Grandma.
Oh, thank you. I'll tell her.
Yeah, Emma, you are welcome back anytime, but thank you so much for sitting down with the girls room.
Thank you. Proud to be here.